This actually, last month would have been our 6th anniversary. Here, there he is. Hurry up and get a seat. It was 6 years ago, January of 2020 is when we had our first OK2A meeting here in Kay County. Time really flies. Anyway, as everyone already knows, we've got Kevin West, who is running for Labor Commission, but he's also a representative. So in addition to up here talking about who you should vote for in the primary, he's going to cover some of the 2A related legislation and liberty related legislation that's going through. Okay, as always, we start our meetings with a prayer. Glenn, can I get you to do our prayer for us?
Sure. You out, please. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this beautiful day we have. Thank you for all the blessings you've showered us with. But especially we pray that you'll be with our leaders, all those officials of our government, that they will look to you for guidance, that they'll be desiring to follow your will and to lead us down that path. Father, we thank you for Kevin West coming. Pray that you'll strengthen him, give him the zeal and the desire to do what's best for our state. Pray that in your son's name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Glenn. And Michael, could I get you to lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Amen. And I want to ask everybody to remember our military in their prayers. We're in another shooting war, and we need to pray for the Lord's guidance and protection on every one of them. All right. Actually, what I wish Trump would have done, rather than send the bombers in, just ship in millions of guns to all them people in the streets in Iran. That's their main disadvantage. They've got the other side outnumbered probably a couple of thousand to one, but they don't have guns. That seemed like a really simple way to do it, and it would have been real easy to do. You just parachute in crates of guns and ammunition. Plus, I got a feeling them folks would have enjoyed it. If I was in their position, I would have enjoyed it. But you know what? I must have missed his call when he called to ask me how he should handle that. For some reason, he didn't get in touch with me. I'm assuming, did everyone see the State of the Union? Yeah. That's the best State of the Union I've ever seen, and I'm 78 years old. The very first president I remember is Harry S. Truman. So, to you young folks, he's from the dark pages of history. Anyway, he created, I don't know, probably a dozen campaign TV ads for November. So I hope enough voters are woken up in the correct use of the term and know to throw these people out. Couple of real quick announcements. We have our Senate District 10, that's our Senate district up here, and our Senator Bill Coleman has a challenger this time around in the primary. And I think most of you have seen him or heard him, Jaden Terrazas. He's a very, very sharp young man. And Coleman, I've gotten 3 mailers from him in the last couple of weeks. Did anybody else get mailers for Bill Coleman? And okay, and at least 2 of them were some dark money group. Blue, I can't remember. Anyway, so I don't know, but I'm wondering, I think maybe he may have some polling shows that he's he could be in trouble this election. I've known Jaden since he was 16 years old, and he is a rock solid conservative. There's no question. He's been conservative since he was in high school. Kind of surprised me because he was a young man. I met him. He used to come to the K County GOP meetings once a month when we had him over at the Lutheran Chapel. And those meetings were pretty boring, but I went to those a couple of years, and the only two that I have specific memories of were the two that he got up and spoke. So he's somebody to look at come primary day on June 16th. Now, we're in House District 38, and right now there's like 7 people that have said they're running for that seat. We'll know more on April 3rd when they have to actually register for the election. Anyway, however many of them are left, I'm going to have 2 candidate forums. One on May 30th at 1 p.m. That'll be for the 2 Senate candidates. And that will be at Glenn's Church, Church of Christ in Tonkawa, 300 North Public. It's the northeast corner of Public and North Street. North Street's the whole highway when it runs into town. And it's directly east across from the high school football field. So it's real easy to find. But we'll have a candidate forum for those 2 on Saturday, May 30th at 1 p.m. And then the following Saturday, June 6th at 12 noon, we will have a candidate forum at the same location. And it will be for however many people have actually registered to run for District 38. I'm not sure, but it seems logical that that crowd of 7 is going to thin out. But if there's 7, then we'll have a candidate forum for 7. They'll each just get less time to talk. So, and then my next meeting is Tuesday the 10th, a week from this Tuesday, at Mary's Grill, 6 p.m. And our program that evening is going to be a full rundown on the legislation that's going on down in the Capitol. Next Friday is when everything has to be out of committee, right? So any bills that haven't made it out of committee by next Friday will be dead for this particular session. So we're getting to the point where we can kind of get an idea of what may or may not be developing down at the state capitol. Okay, has anybody got anything they want to ask about, bring up, talk about? Yes. Oh, yeah. Let me grab one of those. Also at Glenn's Church, by the way, they do actually have church services there. We have 3 services a week, but Glenn is a great community citizen. These are on the table back there, so grab one before you leave. On March 5 from 6 to 8 p.m. What day of the week is that?
Thursday.
Thursday, March 5 from 6 to 8 p.m. at 300 North Public. U.S. Law Shield is going to be presenting a comprehensive first aid training. What you can do right there if somebody gets injured, gunshot, car wreck, whatever. It's going to cover something you can do that might save a person's life before the EMTs and ambulances get there. And they normally charge like 40 or 50 bucks for this, and they're doing this one for free. So it's a great opportunity. He's got a bunch of tourniquets, and he will be showing everyone how to properly apply a tourniquet. And for on the streets, that's probably the #1 life-saving device you can have. Because if you get a vein or an artery cut, you're almost certainly going to bleed out before any professional help gets there. So, like I said, there's a batch of these back there. Grab them, spread the word. It's free, and it will be time well spent, I guarantee you. Okay, Kevin West. Kevin has been as I said in my flyer, an A double plus OK2A guy down at the legislature for 10 years. This is his 10th year, and I'm gonna let him cover him, but he's been instrumental in getting a bunch of our bills passed, and he's gotten a whole bunch of OK2A awards. Your wall's pretty well full, isn't
Yes,
it?
it is.
Yes. So let's give him a big welcome and listen to what he's got to say, because he knows what he's talking about.
Well, thank you guys. I appreciate you guys coming out on a Saturday. It's a beautiful day. I'm sure that probably, I know Terry said this is one of the lower attendances that he's had for this, and it's probably because people are outside enjoying the day. As Terry said, I'm Kevin West. Currently, I'm state representative. I represent Northmore and South Oklahoma City, which is District 54. And just to give a brief update on some of the bills that are coming through, I believe that all of the ones that you texted me, Terry, we got House Bill 2940, House Bill 4125, 3312, 3301, 2937, 1251, and 1386. I'm pretty sure, with the exception of that last one, that's a Senate bill. I think that one has cleared committee and is eligible to be heard on the floor, if I'm been tracking that right. I think all of the House bills are in oversight committee, so I expect them to get heard this week. House Bill 3301 was, that's a Jay Stiegel bill. He's another great patriot, veteran. That is clarifying the definition of short barrel shotguns and rifles. And that one, I actually presented that bill in policy committee because Representative Stiegel wasn't able to be there when it was scheduled. So I was happy to pitch hit for him and get that one passed. We really didn't have very many questions on that one in policy committee anyway. So I don't think that we'll have any problems getting at least the vast majority of these through. We did have one, the capital carry bill that failed in policy committee. That was pretty disappointing. Yep. That was pretty disappointing, because the way that bill was written, it was you had to actually have a concealed carry license. So, all the background check has been done. It's not like the constitutional carry as far as being able to carry inside the Capitol, but hopefully we'll continue having that fight and ultimately get that across the finish line.
There's 2 Senate bills.
Yeah, that's right.
That's what we don't need a bill number, but.
Yeah, the vessel carry is by Senator Hines. That's the Senate Bill 1251, and I'm not real sure where the Senate bills are at this point. So this is year 10 for me, and kind of like Terry mentioned, I've worked really close with Don Spencer the entire time that I've been in the legislature. Been thrilled to carry a lot of bills. I was given the honor of presenting the constitutional carry back in 18. Many of you will remember we passed it in 17, and Governor Fallin vetoed it kind of on her way out the door. So we came back the next year and ran it again. And that was the first bill that Governor Stitt signed. And that kind of put me on a path. I had always just felt like I would be just the kind of the average Oklahoma guy up there at the Capitol, trying to bring a little bit of common sense to all the madness that goes on up there. Figured I would mostly work behind the scenes, but after doing that bill, there's just a whole bunch of things. And when you're in that position and you see a need, it's our obligation and our duty to step up and try and do something about that. So, over the years, I've ran bills that ban the tenets of critical race theory being taught to our children. I ran legislation to stop gender procedures being done on minors. Boys go to the boys' restroom, girls go to the girls' restroom. Some of these bills that probably all of us in this room think are pretty common sense, that others felt were really controversial. But it was an honor to do it. I know a lot of people up at the Capitol, they kind of tease me that, I really like talking to the media and being on the news. And honestly, I really don't. I'd rather just come in, do my job, and then go back home. But that was kind of what my plan was. God had a little bit different path there. And so I was happy to do that. I've really enjoyed my time in the legislature, even with all the frustrations, because, when you have a common sense bill and you have to fight tooth and nail to get it passed, that can kind of wear you down and get you a little bit frustrated. I know I got a lot more gray in my goatee than I did whenever I first walked in the building, but
No gray upstairs.
no gray upstairs. That's right. And I was bald when I walked in, so I can't even say that I ripped all my hair out after getting there. But I really, I've been looking at the Department of Labor for quite some time. My background is construction. I'm a commercial cabinet maker by trade. The projects that we do, we work with general contractors, and typically they're like hospitals and schools and, larger projects like that. So all of the OSHA, the workplace safety, the job site safety is second nature. Some of the things that fall under the purview of the labor commissioner are inspections of elevators, boilers, and amusement rides. I'm really looking forward to the amusement ride inspections, at the state fair, county fairs, amusement parks. I still kind of like to ride the rides. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. Now, I have spoken to a few previous commissioners, and they have warned me of one downside to that, and that's getting that call at 11:30 at night when a kid is stuck on a roller coaster somewhere, either in some far off county fair or there at the Frontier City. But that kind of comes with the job. There's also some licensing that goes through the department. I would say probably most of the licensing goes through the Construction Industries Board, but there are still some that go through the Department of Labor. And some of the things that I really want to do with the department, as far as the things that are the quote have tos, at statehood, the Department of Labor and the Labor Commissioner were both put in the Constitution, but after it says there shall be a Department of Labor headed by a Commissioner of Labor, it says that the legislature will determine what the duties are. So you go to Title 40, and that's where everything is. And over the years, as you can imagine, the legislature has put things in there and they've taken things out. It's kind of been an ebb and flow. So I've talked about some of those have-tos. Another have-to is working with the counties. When it comes to county facilities, anything that holds compressed air, water, or gas is considered a boiler. So they get inspected by the department. So there's a unique relationship there. And of course, on our licensing and getting the information out on workplace safety, job site safety, those are things that we need to get better at doing, especially on the licensing. We've started moving toward being able to do a lot of that online to expedite that for people that need those licenses and those renewals. We need to complete that. So that's really, really high on my list. But the very first thing that was put in Title 40 really caught my eye several years ago. And it says that the labor commissioner shall foster, promote, and develop the welfare of the wage earners of this state. So to me, what that means is pretty much everything that gets done from that department needs to be done with the mindset, is this going to improve conditions for the wage earners of the state? And if we're improving conditions for the wage earners, then that's benefiting the businesses as well. So I see that as a circle there. But some of the things that we've seen in recent years has been a huge gap in workforce, especially in manufacturing, trades, pretty much anything that doesn't require a degree, because for many, many years, our education system has told kids that you have to go to college. College is not for everybody. College is great if that's the path that you want, but it's not a path for everybody. So several years ago, myself and Senator Bullard, which many of you are probably real familiar with, another strong OK2A patriot, we ran a bill that allows 16-year-olds in high school to participate in apprenticeships and internships. And since we've done that, we've had a few groups, because the state does not administer the apprenticeships or the internships. We do have some oversight to make sure that they're done correctly. But other people come in and they do that. They get with the businesses, find out who needs what, and then go to the schools and the career techs and recruit kids to participate in that. And what we've seen, like in my area, my district is all Moore public schools. So we had about a dozen kids participating in what I call work-based education programs when that very first got passed. And right now we have about 40. So this one group is working primarily in Oklahoma City, Moore, and Norman. And they've got about 200 kids total that are in these programs. So I got to doing some research, and I looked, and the top 10 states that have the highest student participation in work-based programs, 9 of them rank in the top 25 in education outcomes. And the one that doesn't is in the high 30s. So I know with me, I'm old enough, I was first introduced to woodworking in the 6th grade. So when that really took hold for me, I wanted to learn these other subjects so I could apply them to what my passion was. I didn't want to just sit in a class and, learn how to pass a test per se. I wanted to actually learn it so I could apply that practical application. And I think most of us learn like that. If it's, I can put up on the board math problems or teach you how to diagram a sentence, and I can teach you what the steps are, but unless you're really interested in it, it's probably not going to completely sink in. So getting those connections early with these kids so that they can figure out, you know, if they want to be a welder or a cabinet maker or plumber, HVAC, whatever it happens to be. Now, I see every single one of these contacts with kids as a 100% success, because I've heard story after story where kids, you know, they wanted to be a welder or a nurse. And then once they started actually doing it, you know, with a welder, you know, you got to wear the heavy clothing and a mask, and it might be -20 outside when you're doing it, or it might be 120. And kids are like, yeah, that's not for me. Well, we've eliminated something. We're not going to waste a lot of time teaching that if that's not what you want to learn, you know, so let's find you a different path. Same with the medical field. You know, there's various medical field things that once a kid figures out, oh, I have to do that, I'm not into that. But there are still, even like with welding, you know, you can be a CNC operator that does welding and not have to wear all of that stuff. So, you know, there's a lot of different pathways here. I've talked to manufacturers across the state, and in my 10 years up at the legislature, you know, we've had bills where we've ran incentives or bribes or however you want to tag it, trying to entice a company to come to Oklahoma, you know, with the promise of thousands of jobs. Well, the manufacturers that we have currently in the state have told me they could hire thousands of Oklahomans if they had the experience that they need. So they're having to go on a slower pace so that they can train people on their own to work. So if we bring this big company in that's going to magically bring thousands of jobs, where do you think those employees are going to come from? They're going to come from the manufacturers that we already have, or move in from out of state. I'm all for the growth, but we have to have the pipelines in place. And those are some of the things that I really want to do. To me, that's the foster, promote, and develop part. Having these pathways from education to the workplace, even once you're in a job, if you want to learn a new skill and get upskilled in that and get a better paying position, we need to have pathways for you to do that. And so one of the bills that I have this year, usually I don't run task force bills because it's a task force. But what I've seen is we don't have anybody looking at what are the barriers to entry and the barriers to growth. You know, is it a legislative barrier? Is it a rule barrier? What is it? A monetary barrier? Because there are grants available to help offset costs. One thing that we've seen with this apprenticeship and internship expansion is we can get high school students onto a construction job site to do an internship or an apprenticeship. We can get high school students into a pharmacy to learn some of that. We can get high school students into a medical setting, but for some reason we cannot seem to get high school students onto a manufacturing floor. What's the barrier? Now, I've heard a bunch of different things from the manufacturers, and almost all of it revolve around the liability. I totally get that. You know, nobody wants to have a kid get hurt in one of these settings, but they are under supervision. And like I said, we can get them onto a construction job site or into a cabinet shop, why can't we get them onto a manufacturing floor? So that's some of the things that this task force is going to be looking at. What are these barriers? Are they ones that we can do something about and get that barrier removed? Or do we need to figure out a way around that? Because, you know, right now, the way that the apprenticeship bill was written, it allows the school to get liability insurance, work comp, you know, whatever. Of course, you know, they're not just itching to spend money on stuff like that, but there are grants available as well. So, you know, identifying what the problem is and then identifying what some possible solutions are. Another thing is we've done a decent job over the last about 5 or 6 years of getting, because I believe that we had like 18 or 20 state agencies that touched on workforce development in some way, shape, or form, whether that's job placement, continuing education, you know, whatever. And we've kind of got that down to about a dozen now, but the ones that are left, they're not really communicating with each other. So if most people, when I mention OESC, they immediately think unemployment. Well, they do a lot of job placement too. They have a ton of information. If you've ever had to file for workers or unemployment or know somebody who has, there are requirements for them to go and interview for jobs and turn in resumes and applications. Most of that information comes right from OESC. The Department of Commerce has a lot of that information too. So that's another thing that this task force will do is get all of these groups together, get it to where we're all talking to each other so that regardless of where you go or average Oklahoma citizen goes to look for job placement and or education, continuing education opportunities, everybody's got the same information, you know, so you're not having to hunt and peck and hope you find the right agency to even get that information from. I think things like that will help tremendously. And then along with that is, as labor commissioner, I'll be talking to business owners across the state. I'll be talking to education groups across the state, being able to promote these kind of programs, that these are available. We've got companies that are taking the initiative because we're losing so many people from various fields. One in particular in general construction, they're going into high schools and recruiting kids. They've got 2 different paths. One path is takes you through higher education so that you can be a construction manager, and one path takes you into the field so that you can be ultimately like a job superintendent. But letting these kids know these things are available, because right now, unless they hear from one of these handful of companies that's doing this, they have no idea that that's even available. So those are some of the things that I'm really passionate about with this position. It's a unique position because it is a down ballot position, you know, and I get it. I've stood in that ballot box, and by the time you get down to, you know, labor commissioner, insurance commissioner, corporation commissioner, you know, you're worn out. You're like, I'm just marking whatever. But I want to emphasize that those down ballots are every bit as important, maybe even more important than the top of the ticket. Because I tell you, I've been in the legislature. I mean, last year, Governor Stitt vetoed a ton of bills, and we overrode most of those vetoes. You know, I'm not saying it's not important who our governor is, because they do have a lot of influence. But when you start looking at who in this room has insurance, who in this room has worked or knows somebody who works, who in this room has utilities and pays a utility bill, I'm telling you, those three positions make a difference to pretty much every single person in the state of Oklahoma. So I encourage you to research, find out who's running for all of those positions, why they're running, and who aligns with your values. I'd mentioned, you know, I've been looking at labor for a while. The very first time I seriously considered running for it was 4 years ago, because of the lack of direction around COVID from the Labor Department. I felt like the Department of Labor should have been giving out a lot of information on that. Me personally, you know, I ran legislation to, you know, make it to where people have those options. You have to respect the individual owner of that company's rights as well. But at the same time, you know, things like not being able to mandate that you're vaccinated, you know, that's a choice that you make. I decided, obviously, ultimately not to run at that time, because I didn't want it to be just a one issue campaign. So, you know, these past 4 years, I've been looking at this and looking at ways that you can make it something that's very unique. I look back to like when Mark Costello was labor commissioner, and, you know, all of the have-tos were getting done, but he took the initiative to really promote the safety pays program. And I can tell you, from somebody who works in construction, that made a huge difference, because now almost every major general contractor has a safety coordinator, and almost every job site has one on site. You know, the rate of injuries have gone tremendously down on these job sites. And again, you know, that falls right into the foster, promote, and develop, because if workers are getting hurt, then they're not coming back to work the next day, and we're having voids there. You're disrupting lives. So safety is the absolute number one thing with this position. But also with my legislative record, I have a history of, you know, being consistent in how I interpret the law. And that's another huge part that the labor commissioner is going to do. You're interpreting state law, state administrative rules, federal law, and federal rules. And you need somebody in that position that is going to interpret them correctly and consistently, because if you've ever been in business, consistency is paramount. Because unless there's been a change to the laws or the rules, what's legal today should be legal tomorrow. What's wrong today should be wrong tomorrow. But if you're playing favorites or not interpreting those rules and regulations correctly, then you start getting ebbs and flows, and those are things that we can't have. They cause disruption, they cause confusion, and cost money, and in a lot of instances will cost lives. So those are my passions with that. Back on the table, I hope you guys, I hope everybody will pick one of these up. Looks like a contribution card, and that's because that's what it is. But there's some other important information on here, because I realize not everybody can make a contribution to a statewide campaign. It does cost a lot of money, but there are some very important things that you can mark on here, and I'll just go through them. The first one says that you'll vote for me. I would love to know that I can count on that vote. I've got yard signs. The second one is that you'll display a yard sign. Third one is if you can volunteer in this area, you know, that these are all things that the campaign need. Provide a location for large signs. When I get my large signs in, you know, I'm going to need places to put them. Endorsements are always welcome. Maybe you're willing to host an event for me or a meeting such as this. And even though it's listed on here last, I would say that the very most important thing is this last one on here, and that's that you'll commit to pray for me. As I travel around the state, talking to groups, you know, anything can happen when you're on the road. I'm also trying to maintain all my obligations at the Capitol, and myself and my family desperately covet those prayers. So with that, I'll open it up to questions. If you guys have any questions, Terry.
Okay, yeah. One thing, I mean, the labor department is really important to the workers, but also to the employers. And my guess is, before a company moves any kind of facility into Oklahoma, they go through the labor department with a fine-tooth comb. Is that correct?
Yes,
Yeah.
that is correct. And, you know, because they want to know what is your regulatory environment. Some businesses are more regulated than others, but if they are regulated, they want to know how consistent is that? How does that all work?
Rules that they gotta follow.
Exactly.
Okay.
And you know, I've been fortunate. I have met with the federal Small Business Administration, and then I've also met with the guy from the Federal Department of Labor that works here in Oklahoma specifically. You know, so having those kind of connections are also very key and vital, because there are government programs that are available that are being vastly underused.
You touched on schools, and I think one of the disasters in education in every state I've ever had any experience with, in the last, 20 years, shop classes are gone.
Mm-hmm.
There's no hands-on woodworking,
Yep.
metalworking, any auto mechanics, HVAC, any of that. Is that something that the labor commissioner could perhaps influence, even though it's another department, education?
Yes. Short answer, yes, absolutely. Obviously, the state superintendent is another one that is on the ballot, and I've been at several different forums with most of the leading contenders for that, and almost every single one of them have said publicly that they would gladly work with me on implementing a lot of this kind of stuff, because we have to have these. And, you know, I get it. Some schools won't be able to do a shop class, you know, because of their size. But there's a VOTEC that we can partner with and make sure that we're getting the kids exposed to that.
Well, even the VOTEX, it seems to me as an outsider that I think one of the problems is we've got too many academics running things rather than practical people.
Yep.
And so they've got their PhDs, and it seems like that the VOTEX even have started drifting slowly away from their original mission. Would you agree? Am I getting a correct?
I would say that has been the trend, but what I've seen recently, and by recently I mean like just within the last couple of years, and based on conversations that I've had with a lot of the career tech folks is that they are really starting to realize the importance of the trades, and we're getting more interest in that because of some of these groups and individual employers getting out and getting the word out. So if we had somebody like myself actively promoting this and coming up with some plans, I talked to a guy, I think it was Indiana, started a program a few years ago where it's basically a school choice, but for career tech. So, a lot of our career techs they'll kind of specialize in what that their individual area needs. So, you might be in a little bit smaller career tech system that maybe only 5 kids are interested in welding, and they deem that that's not enough. Well, you could get to the next one over and be able to do your welding. Yes.
Okay, great. Well, that's encouraging, because Mike Rowe, this is a long time ago. Mike Rowe, the TV person, he said that for every 5 people leaving trades now, welders, HVAC, and all of that, there's only 1 going in, which means in a decade or 2, well, it's already getting hard to get, if you need a plumber
Oh, yeah.
or whatever, sometimes you gotta book it weeks in advance. So this is something that could really blow up. I mean, this could affect the entire culture.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Because, we pick any one individual trade, and probably the one that has the most, probably the highest, but it's still nowhere near enough to keep up with the rate of people retiring out, would be HVAC.
Yeah.
But even that, we're not keeping up with it. I have been trying to get in contact with Mike Rowe. He has some programs as well.
Yeah, he's
And-
real active.
Yes, and it's one of the kind of cool things that nobody really notices is that in statute, the labor commissioner can enter into agreements with other states or other entities if it's going to be beneficial for the state. To the best of my knowledge, no state has partnered with Mike Rowe and his various programs. I would love to have those conversations and see if we could make something like that happen.
Yeah, that would be great. Well, also, you mentioned school liabilities, one of the bumps in the road to getting manufacturing
Yep.
into the schools. How in the world would that be more of a liability issue than the school football team? I mean, it's,
I agree with you. Like I said, I just haven't been able to get any clear-cut answer on that, because I was actively looking for something that I could run a legislation on. So that's where I wound up back on this task force to, you got all of the areas that touch on workplace development or workforce development. Education, you got K through 12 is on there, career tech, higher ed. Because here's another crazy thing to me. If a kid goes through career tech, I'll just say nursing program, and they go through the full curriculum, they will wind up with more clinical hours through career tech than they do if they go to higher ed degreed program. Okay, now I get it. I've talked to higher ed, I've talked to nurses as well, and there's a lot of things that get taught in higher ed that aren't necessarily covered. But when a kid comes out of career tech nursing, very few of those hours translate over into higher ed. So you're basically starting at scratch. I see that as another barrier, because you should be able to, if you go through career tech, we should be able to identify, because the state's determining what those standards are. And if you come out of that program, then you're at this level and you can enter the workforce. Most of those hours would transfer into higher ed. You can be working, earning a wage, and if you want that degree, you can go to school at night. And if you can get your degree in, say, a year, we'll even say 2 years, as opposed to 4 years with all that debt. We're told every day that we have nursing shortages, just like we have welders shortages, cabinet makers, all of this. We've got to identify these things so that we can get them certified, degreed, whatever their ultimate goal is, and have them in the workforce being productive.
That's primarily because we have way too many academics and PhDs running this stuff.
Yep.
Their vested interest is people going through all that and getting the paper like they did. They don't think about the actual real world. I've seen this over and over. One other thing I want to mention, in the future, you're running for a 4-year term, right?
Correct.
Okay, when you get elected, by the end of that 4-year term, the Labor Department's gonna have to be dealing with the Optimus robots. Are you familiar with Elon Musk?
Yes.
He's gonna be in full production on those by the end of this year. He just discontinued his S and his X model cars. That plant is being converted entirely for Optimus robots.
Yep.
And he's got these things, they're AI, to train them to be HVAC or whatever. They show them videos and they run programs into their electronic brain. This is gonna change the entire labor market, the entire world actually. But that's something that whoever is in office in 3 or 4 years, maybe 2 or 3 years, is gonna be dealing with this. And these big manufacturers, this is gonna be another impact on the labor market. Why should they hire somebody at $50,000 a year and health care and retirement and all of that if they can buy a robot for $50,000 or $100,000, and that robot can work 22 hours a day? And so there's gonna be some huge changes coming in the labor field over the next few years.
Absolutely. And I use this when the very first cabinet shop that I worked at, this was late 80s. We probably didn't even have a computer on site, period. Now our cabinet shop, we still have table saws and shapers and all of that, and nobody uses them because everything is done through a computer now. We do our estimating through computers. We do our drafting through computers. It gets programmed and sent to a machine, and a machine cuts everything.
That's a robot.
Yes.
That's a stationary robot. The person, the machine doing the cutting, that's just a primitive robot.
Yep.
And they say, Elon says it's gonna replace surgeons.
I wouldn't doubt it. I wouldn't doubt it. So that's where the upskill stuff, you're already at a company, and because it's coming, the AI is coming, the advanced robotics is coming, but you're still going to need people to do certain things with them. So, encouraging them to upskill their workforce. There's going to be some people that don't want to, and that's fine. They can go into another field or go work for another company that's maybe not able to get all that advanced stuff. But before too long, everybody's going to be in that, or you're not going to be in business. So we've got to continue building and having those pathways for them to, either stay within that company and move up to something different. Another example, I worked for a company that all they did was make lids for beer and pop cans. That's it. When I started working for them in the mid 80s, my job was to bag the lids. A machine was making them, that was making like 800 lids a minute. And we put them in these, basically a giant penny roll, and stack them on a pallet behind you. Well, today, that you had two lines, you had to keep them separate. Today, all of their machines are 4 lines, and robots are bagging them and stacking them. Well, what they did was they upskilled their employees to teach them how to operate the machine, how to do these other things that people still needed to do. You also got to have somebody who's maintaining the robot, because if that robot goes down and can't bag it, now what are you going to do? So there are ways to do that and not necessarily lose a job, maybe make it easier, because we were working 12-hour shifts, 3 days on, 3 days off, and 12 hours a day just bagging and loading, because that machine never stopped. Was grueling. But there are a lot of things that we can do, and I believe that we need to have, to your point exactly, we need to have somebody who has seen it and lived it, worked through that, and knows how to help these companies prepare for what's coming.
The way you survive and succeed when there's revolutionary changes coming is looking at them before they hit you.
Yep.
And having a plan in place. And then the thing about a plan in place, you also need to know when your plan is no good and you need to stop and do a 180 and go to plan B.
Yep.
And that's something organizations are not very good at doing.
No, they're not. And I think probably everybody in this room knows full well, 9 times out of 10, however good of a planner you are, something comes up that derails that. And just like you said, you have to be able to pivot. So, you got to keep yourself surrounded by people who are constantly keeping an eye out what's going on, have that personal experience, and then be able to make that decision. No, we need to plow through because we're going to be able to get through that, or nope, this is totally unexpected. We need to go in a different direction.
One-man business for 30 years, very successful. 25 of those years, I got 4 months a year vacation. But that was one of the advantages I had. I didn't have to discuss any decisions with anybody. I make a decision at 10 o'clock in the morning, and at 10:20, I realized it was the wrong decision. So I was on to plan B and sometimes plan C or D. Yep. But I had that flexibility. In fact, when I talk to young people, I always ask them, what are your plans when you get out of school? And I don't really care what their plans are. I just want to plant an idea in their minds, because about 1 out of 100 this might apply to. I tell them, if you can learn a trade or a skill that you can do as a one-person business, you're going to have a much less stressful life.
Yeah.
Because when you have a one-man business, you don't depend on anybody because you don't have any employees, and you don't answer to anybody.
Yep.
And let me tell you, if you can make a living doing it that way, it's the best life in the world for a working guy.
It really is. And, that's another thing with the trades. I tell people all the time, being a cabinet maker, I'm familiar with wood. I can take a stack of wood, all pine boards, and I start working with them, and every single one of them is going to be different. It's going to sand different. It's going to cut a little different. And you have to figure out how to work through all of that. And, like I said, there were a bunch of kids that went through that original woodworking class that I started in 6th grade. I might be the only one that made a career out of it. I don't know. But I can tell you, everybody who went through that program learned something that stuck with them for the rest of their lives. And whether you make a career out of it or not, it's still a benefit, and it's something that we are missing right now with our kids.
I'm telling how many of those people, this is their hobby in their garage.
Yeah.
They're building furniture for their family. My dad was that way.
Yeah.
He didn't learn in school, he learned on the job, but there's a lot of woodworker hobbyists.
Yes. Well, and I mean, like I live in a metro area, you know, so we have stockade fences everywhere, and I live in Moore. You know, we get high wind, hail, and tornadoes all the time. So, yeah. So, well, it used to be. I think we lost that the last couple of years. Thank God. But you know, just having, even if that's not what your career is, you know, having the knowledge that you can do those things. You know, I mean, if you want to hire somebody, great, do that. You know, there's a lot of people out there that do that. Plumbing, if you can pick up some basic plumbing and change out a sink on your own, you know, I mean, these are things that most of the people my age, I'm 58, they know how to do. You know, some of us don't, just choose not to do it, but at least that's our choice, you know. And the ones that are coming up right now, they just have no clue.
If I have to pick up a tool, I pick up my phone and call somebody that knows. I have no ability to do it. Excuse me, everybody, for monopolizing the question period. So now you all can ask your question.
Are there any other questions? Because
Just a comment. On a more macro level, I happen to used to be in a position where we'd want to build a manufacturing facility. We'd go into the cities, and one of the first things we did was analyze the intellectual capacity of the students for the future. Oklahoma doesn't give a damn about students. They come out of high school, they're stupid. You know, they can write their name and they can do a few things. And when I say that, it's a general, overgeneralization. I know you have, you know, 20, 30% of the kids who are bright and can do anything. But the downfall is when manufacturers or large builders, let's say, I know down in the Dallas area, I don't know if there are in Oklahoma, big builders who come in and do a 3,000 or 4,000 home development, and they're going to be hiring a lot of people, but they're going to look at the basic intellectual capacity. And until Oklahoma wakes up and starts challenging these kids and making them learn, instead they're going backwards. They're lowering the hours per year the kids have to be in school, and they just can't learn.
no.
And you know, you're talking about robots, and you have to have people who are going to learn how to run those robots or whatever it might be, and they haven't got the capacity. So I don't know what the answer is. I'm just railing on my own about this BS of the education system.
Well, I agree 100%, and that's why I think it is so important that we have somebody like myself in this position to get those things started. And I personally have been very encouraged that, like I said, most of the ones running for state superintendent tend to agree with me that we need to have these things in place. Because, I mean, like I said, it's not by accident that there's other factors that go into it. It's not this solely, but you will never be able to convince me that there's not a direct correlation between the work-based education stuff and the high education outcomes. And Oklahoma is low in both of those. So, you know, if we can get some of those programs in place, some of those pipelines in place, start connecting some of those dots between employers and the students. In my area, I've got Moore Norman Votech, which that they do a thing. They start with first graders. Over the summer, I think they call it career fair, something like that. They do it age appropriate, but they'll put out information to all of the parents in that area and have kids come in for a couple days a week for a few weeks and expose them to, 8 or 9 different things that they offer. And the overall goal is to continue doing that all the way through. And then when they're ready to enter the career tech system, they have a pretty good idea what they want to do, what their interests are, this, that, and another, So again, you're kind of letting them decide, but you're still kind of funneling them to, 1 or 2 things. But to your overall point, yes, if I'm a company, I'm in another state and I'm looking to move to Oklahoma, that's one of the first things I'm going to look at. How can you support the growth that I anticipate having? And if you don't have those pipelines, you don't have those things in place, then the answer is always going to be no, which is also one of the main reasons why we very rarely get any of these.
Who does the commissioner have to interface with to force the issue to improve the things you're talking about and what I'm talking about? Who do you interact with?
Well, it's a wide variety of agencies. Obviously you got your K through 12, so the Department of Education there, individual school districts, because the labor commissioner historically goes to almost all of the school districts at some point in time, for various things, and then the businesses, because here's the thing, and I would never advocate for the state of Oklahoma running a program. It needs to be something, if there is a program done, there is oversight so that it's done correctly, but it needs to be done outside of the state. I think we would all agree with that. But the way that you get that is you get these businesses to buy into it. Hey, you're a cabinet shop, you need more people. Let's get you connected with the schools in your area so that they're focusing on that, the career tech. If it's manufacturing, and that's where identifying and removing some of those barriers so that we can get kids exposed to this. In Oklahoma City, there's a manufacturing skills academy that the Central Oklahoma Manufacturing Association is doing. They were able to get some of the COVID money to get it started. Their focus is 18 to 24-year-olds, and almost all of the kids are at-risk kids. They just yesterday had their first group of kids graduate from that. So some of the manufacturers donated machinery. They've got state-of-the-art machinery in there. And what they're doing, they got that seed money, and they have contracts with local manufacturers, so the kids are not only learning how to operate these machines, but they're making parts that they're selling, and that money keeps the program going.
Wonderful idea.
Yeah.
Now, this is brand new?
It's brand new.
What's the name of it again?
Manufacturing Skills Academy. It's just north of the Capitol. And things like that, as a legislator, I have no problem giving some seed money to something like that that's going to pay great dividends for years. But we have to identify more of those and, get them specific to what those needs are.
Great idea.
I think we need to go back to the education department, I agree with this guy.
Yeah.
Blackwell, I think, just voted to have a 4-day school.
Concord did it last year, I think. Wasn't it last year?
And
Yeah,
I work
Blackwell's there now.
privately, but I work with kids all the time, and the parents now don't care.
You know,
It's real frustrating.
it really is, and you know, that's one of the reasons on this task force that I wanted education. There were several reasons. I mean, they're a key component to a lot of these pipelines and everything
We have
else.
teachers that don't wanna work, and then you have students that follow through. You have parents, a lady that used to be principal at Lutheran here, she said about 8-9 years ago, she said, we cannot give the homework we used to because the parents complain.
Yep. And, you know, I think with some of this, because I know for myself, I drove a lot of that whenever I was in school because I was interested in something, you know, so I wanted to learn it. So I took that initiative. But I think if we can get that circle rebuilt, just real quick, my son, he's an independent welder now. And now this is something that we changed. We did have a state requirement for fine art to get your diploma. So we had moved around quite a bit, and you know, each district is a little bit different. Well, we had moved, and he was in his senior year, midway through. We get called into the counselor's office and told that he's going to have to drop like ag class, which was that district's version of shop, because you learned welding, woodworking, all kinds of stuff. He's going to have to drop that. He was going to have to take like drama, acting, things like this. He was going to have to do summer school and probably the additional year. This is midway through his senior year. And he was like, I'm not going to do it. So he wound up, we let him drop out. He got his GED before the school year was done. He went to Tulsa Welding School. If you ever go to downtown Oklahoma City at 10th and Broadway, in between a parking garage and another building, there's a spiral staircase that's suspended. Well, my son did that, and he hung it. They were demoing an old building in downtown Oklahoma City, and this metal spiral staircase was in there. The general contractor told them to just cut it up. We'll haul it off for scrap. Well, my son and a couple other guys come up with the idea to suspend it. They pitched it to the general contractor. The owner approved it, so they did that. Well, it's been in a lot of magazines as the gateway to the art district in Oklahoma City.
You must be really proud. How old is your boy?
He is 35.
Wow, you must be really proud of him.
Yes. So he took one of those magazines that had that and went back to the counselor and very politely just laid the magazine on her desk, slid it over to her, and told her, welding is art. Now, like I said, now we have removed that requirement, but those are the kind of things that we've just got to change the mindset. And, you know, you talking about going to 4-day school week, I was in the legislature when the teachers walked out, and we were told at that time that it was a national embarrassment that so many of our schools were doing 4-day school weeks. And the very next year, we ran legislation to block that. And the very teachers that were telling us that were up there telling us, local control, you got to let us do this. Our people love it, this, that, and another. You know, so it is frustrating. You know, I talked about some of the frustrations of being a legislator, even though I do overall enjoy it. It is kind of frustrating at times, but we've got to change that mentality, because the fact of the matter is we're going to wind up with, we're on an unsustainable trajectory right now with the workforce stuff, and we've got to change that mentality. I have at least been encouraged, like I said, that the candidates for state superintendent have publicly said that, you know, they like a lot of the stuff that I'm talking about and look forward to working with me to get that implemented. So hopefully that will be true.
Well, they love it because they don't have to work as hard.
3-day weekends.
Yeah.
That's what it's all about, 3-day weekends. In fact, the teachers union is one of the most dangerous organizations in this country.
Yes. Yeah.
And I mean dangerous. Yeah.
Yeah, Vince, you know, if you're coming in and you need, your process requires some mathematic skills, maybe really lower algebra or even add and subtracting.
Yeah.
It might require. And you look at our scores and it's
Yeah.
I'm not gonna put him in there, he isn't gonna, you know, he can't do this. You know,
Yep.
overall, he probably can't because of the percentages that are failures
Yep.
in mathematics and English.
They're not
And,
getting change in the store if the computer's down.
yeah,
They can't, it's like,
Oh, even with the computer, sometimes, you know, if it, well, now pennies are kind of gone away, but you know, it wasn't that long ago. If it was like 5.52 and you gave them a 10 and 2 pennies, they'd give you the 2 pennies back, you know, and go, you know, because the machine is just,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
but
But
I'm an old man, because I'm not gonna deal with this crap as long as you youngsters are.
well,
But-
I'm also worried about, as you said, we're moving into robotics. And you get into the manufacturing area and the manufacturing floor is gonna be 80% of the process is robotic. And then the robots will create a union for the robots,
Yeah.
so they don't have to run 20 hours a day.
They've already established communications and they've started their own language so they can communicate amongst AI brains without humans being able to monitor it.
it's amazing. It's scary. It's amazing.
But it's unstoppable.
Yeah,
It's
it is.
unstoppable. We gotta deal with it.
I've heard a guy speak, and if you guys ever see this like online, if you're even remotely interested in any of the AI stuff, he does speaking engagements too around the state. His name is Hart Brown, and it is just fascinating. His whole company is about consulting people who are getting into the AI space, and some of the things that he does within his own company, he utilizes AI extensively. And one of the main things that he really pushes is he does weekly things with his human employees that force them to use their own brain, because you still have to check. If you've ever used ChatGPT or any of those, you know, it's pulling information from the web. And I over the summer, I put in a couple of my bills that I'd ran and asked it about them, you know, and one of them even gave me a quote that supposedly I made that I never made. And, you know, so you have to be able to push back on it. You know, if you're using it to help do your estimating, if you're doing like electrical, let's say, even like this room, and it misses one line, you know, that can be the difference between getting a bid or going broke. You know, so you've got to have people who are constantly checking it.
Try that.
Yeah. Well, like I said, I I've got signs back there in the back. Please, I've got like 2,000 out in my truck. So don't, if they start disappearing, don't feel like, oh, I can't take one, because I've got plenty.
Definitely get one. I want a corner lot.
And I've got flyers, and then of course these cards. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Fascinating. All right, folks. Let's see here. If anyone's interested, I'm going to go have lunch over at Danny's afterwards. So if anybody wants to join me, they got lots of seats over there. One other thing I wanted to bring up, one of his opponents, one of Kevin's opponents in this race is John Pfeiffer, which I'm sure every one of you know who that is. He's been our representative here for 12 years. He's terming out. He's running for labor secretary or labor commissioner, and he has absolutely no interest in coming to talk to us. I tried to get something set up with him several months ago, and he's spoken at meetings. So I don't know what's going on, but if I know that name is going to be the most familiar when you look at the ballot, and I wanted at least my people to know he's not interested in coming to address us. John Pfeiffer. He's been our state representative. This is his 12th year. He's terming out this year.
It's so strange, because he's come here a number of
yeah,
times.
exactly.
As a state
Yeah.
representative.
Well, I invited him, and he ghosted me. And then I interacted with him at one of the legislative breakfasts in Tonkawa, and he didn't say a word about it. And I'm not asking 3 times. I asked twice. I'm not asking 3 times. So that tells me how responsive he's going to be when he's got a statewide office. Odd way to run a campaign. I did tell him that, because I thought he and I had kind of become friends, but then I remembered, oh, I'm dealing with a politician. So anyway, anybody got anything else they want to contribute? Thanks for coming, folks. I appreciate it very much, and we'll see you next time around.